Killian, thank you so much for letting me speak tonight. The mission of this board reads, we will maximize every student's potential through rigorous and relevant learning experiences, preparing students to be 21st century global leaders. District Goal 2 is for a safe and healthy environment and reads, the district will provide a safe, disciplined, and healthy environment conducive to student learning. The federal protection of pupil rights has given parents the right to inspect their children's educational materials since 1978. Texas Education Code 26.004 and .008 also give access to official records.
Involvement, but when parents fill out a survey overwhelmingly supporting keeping health, you decide you don't actually want that parent input. When 2 or 3 parents raise concerns to you about pronouns, you decide you must act. When nearly 7,000 parents tell you that they want to keep health, that sample size isn't big enough. It was 75%, which is more than anyone on this board was elected by. I'm willing to bet that more people have shown up here today in protest of your new policy than have ever emailed any member of this board confused about pronouns or any other facet of this issue. You say you want to attract teachers, but they all complain that there's too much compliance paperwork, and this policy will only create more. For reasonable accommodations, you must have paperwork to document it. The majority of people showing up today are going to be speaking out against this policy, but you're not going to listen to them. If you had the courage to put up a survey about this new policy, you would find that most parents in this district are against it, which is why you'll never do that. Dr. Killian tells us that when we're talking to legislators who don't want to listen to us, we should still try to be kind. And I agree with that, but I am exhausted by the constant attacks on this district, the constant need to go after our students. I'm sick of you hiding behind the shield of parent choice while robbing us of the one choice we all made when we chose to live in CSISD. The choice and decision to be in a good school district that cares about our kids, their safety, and their education above your agenda. Thank you.
And if you see your name, please move down to the front.
Hello. I am requesting that the 10 Commandments be put poster size in every classroom as done in Louisiana, and it be put on next meeting's agenda. We are a product of our choices, but without knowledge, we make uninformed and ignorant decisions. And the Bible says we perish. Students' future well-being depends on making good choices, but this is made difficult when knowledge in full is kept and hidden from them because of fear and bias. The Bible is the best-selling book every year and of all time. Therefore, common sense dictates that it's for a reason, and its knowledge should be included in basic academics and public education. Students are not receiving an equal opportunity in public education to learn biblical history and its life lessons. The 10 Commandments is an opportunity to have a visual aid and help equip students in making informed decisions. We have a mandate from God to teach our children in Psalm 78, 5-7. And God commanded our fathers that they should make known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, that the children who would be born, that they may arise and declare them to their children, that they may set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments.
Amen. I'm a special education teacher at the elementary level. Data is imperative to drive instruction. No one would refute that. However, I have some concerns with how we collect and use data in our district. First, the special education population all falls into one category. But we have so many ways for students to qualify for special education services. For example, students who only receive speech services but no other academic support are included in the special education data. Our resource students, who we have collected years of data on and have as an IEP committee, decided should receive modified curriculum and are also expected to take grade level district assessments. How is this good data? The data collected for students receiving modified instruction indicates that district assessments are not appropriate. How are we using the data to make informed decisions? My students come to my classroom to thrive. After years of failure in the general education setting, yet I'm required to give them assessments they will fail. Why do we want students to look and feel like failures? We need to do better for them.
Pronouns or nicknames. Funnily, Ms. Scanlon did not mention that the parents she had interacted with had never once mentioned pronouns to her. Parents who presumably saw nothing to be confused about. Likely, there are more parents here today in protest of this policy than there have ever reached out to Ms. Scanlon in distress over trans kids. Mr. Blaming Game is quick to point out that this policy is in line with another district. Personally, I choose to live in this district, so that does not seem like a race to the bottom I'm interested in. Kids wanting to go by their chosen name and pronouns isn't something new and certainly isn't something that requires paperwork, meetings, or parental notification. The idea that Alexandria needs to ask you to go by Alex is asinine. Thank you.
1 minute is not enough time to dig deep in all I feel about the proposed policy 7A4. So these are my top 10 thoughts. 10, the definition of discrimination is the unjust or prejudiced treatment of different categories of people. 9, the definition of prejudice is preconceived opinion that is not based on actual fact or experience and to cause harm or injury that results from an action or judgment. 8, segregation is an act or state of setting someone apart from others. 7, the policy is redundant and covered by other policies that do not discriminate or segregate. 6, it breaches the Texas Education Teachers Code of Ethics that states an educator shall not intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly treat a student or minor in a manner that adversely affects or endangers their learning, physical health, mental health, or safety of the student or minor. 5, it threatens works by Ovid, Shakespeare, Wolfe, Wilde, Walker, L. Frank Baum. It holds up 20th century Western cultural beliefs about gender as a standard and discredits all other interpretation. Teachers with concerns already have HR options. The language on the survey is too broad, and the definitions are made up and circular, murky, and leave them open to interpretation that fails to distinguish between fact and opinion. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Serena, she, they pronouns. I am here on behalf of Equality Texas, which is the state's largest LGBTQ+ advocacy organization. I am very concerned about the proposed policy on parental rights and responsibilities, which I believe will harm LGBTQ+ students in this district. This policy risks forcibly outing students to unsupported families, which can lead to unsafe home environments, mental health crisis, and homelessness. It also denies the existence of non-binary and trans students, erasing their identities and making schools less inclusive. The LGBTQ+ community, especially trans youth, already face alarming rates of bullying, violence, and suicide. Policies like this do not protect children. They make them more vulnerable. If this board truly cares about the well-being of students, it will focus on pressing issues like reinstating bus routes to prevent further tragedies instead of targeting marginalized communities.
Thank you, your time has expired.
My name is Mo Hatfield, and I am a recent graduate from CFISD. I also happen to be non-binary. According to a 2024 survey from the Trevor Project, 46% of trans youth have seriously considered suicide in the past year, and 14% have attempted suicide. 65% of trans youth have felt discriminated against due to their gender identity in the past year. 16% of trans kids found school to be more supportive than their home environment in the past year. And trans students who found their school to be gender affirming had a significantly lower rates of suicide attempts and suicidal ideation. This policy revision would remove the existence of a huge group of people from all school materials, including optional library books. How does not letting students know about other people prepare them to be 21st century global leaders? This policy will hurt students physically and emotionally. Do you want to be responsible for something that will cause harm to students? Why are we focusing on this and not students and their reading? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Sandrani, and I am currently a junior here at Cy-Fair High School. Aside from the blatant issues of inequity that arise from this policy, I asked the board to look to the facts. When we saw a policy similar to this one implemented in Katy ISD, the district was investigated by the feds for violating protections under Title IX, and now Katy is at risk of losing federal funding. Cy-Fair simply cannot afford to do the same. We have children walking literal miles to school. This is our reality, and this is what the board needs to be spending its time trying to combat, not engaging in identity politics. We think that this not only affects my trans classmates, but every single student in Sci-Fair, insofar as we risk losing federal dollars and allow policies like this one to continue to be passed. So board members, I implore you to drop this and instead craft legislation that strives for the ideal, a world in which every student has equal protection and equal opportunity.
Hello, I'm Xavier Benson, a junior at Sci-Fair High School. I am completely appalled by the words that I read in the Policy Plan 78.4. It is nothing short of dystopian. This policy is explicitly hateful and has absolutely nothing to do with the education of the students at CFISD. I would like to point out that KDISD, who put a very similar policy in place, is currently under federal investigation for violating Title IX regarding sex-related discrimination. I promise you that if this policy is put into place, CFISD students will take the same action against KDISD, putting you under federal investigation. The students' pronouns have no effect on the learning environment, no effect on the quality of education, and no effect on teacher ability to teach. This policy has no reason to be put in place other than hate for LGBTQ students at CFISD. If put into place, these policies will have harsh mental health effects on the students and their teachers being forced to report students, and detrimental effects on the home life of the students involved. The district has no place forcefully intruding in students' home lives, and lastly, LGBTQ students are more than 4 times likely to commit suicide than their peers.
Thank you, your time has expired. Thank you, your time has expired.
Good evening, my name is William Choi Kim, and I stand before you today as a student and member of the Sci-Fair community. I will begin by acknowledging the great work this board does for the district. But I know my time here is brief, so I'd like to take this opportunity to outline just one component of 7A4 that I find problematic and that I hope will be of concern to you as well. That component is the penultimate heading regarding censorship of material adopting and supporting gender fluidity. This not only continues a dangerous perversion of information availability and knowledge freedom that this board has instituted since it began book bans in June of last year, but also threatens to eliminate clubs and organizations that serve as an important anchor for members of often marginalized communities. Regardless of your opinion on gender, the CFISD board should always strive to protect each and every student, an aim to which this policy serves as a direct antithesis. As Madam Vice President said earlier tonight, it is important that we support disenfranchised students in our district. So please consider this question today. What threat does this radical policy abate? It's contrarian to the very concept of education.
Thank you, your time has expired.
Over the past few years, I have watched as the national status quo has devolved into a direct attack on my community. I must say, I hope CFISD would be wiser. I hoped the students here could feel safe. I hoped this district would do what it should to protect its students and help them flourish as individuals. These proposed policies directly oppose that. Data from UCLA estimates that 1,600 trans students in your district will be affected by this policy, and according to the Trevor Project, less than 1 in 3 of them consider their home a place to express themselves as they truly are. It's easy to deduce that parent notification and this invasion of our privacy is potentially detrimental to the majority of us who live in unaccepting households. An adoption of this policy would be a failure. You will have failed your duty as board trustees to create a positive and inclusive learning environment for us. You will have hurt us all and contributed to the stigmatization of our existence. Schools should be a safe place for every student where they do not feel like their existence is threatened. These policies would only shame and ostracize us, and you cannot erase us by removing our books from libraries.
Okay, all right. My name is Jared Burton, and I'm a senior from KDISD. As president of my high school's Sexuality and Gender Alliance Club in KDISD, the district from which this policy was lifted, the most common answer that we receive when we're inviting people to join us is, no, I can't risk my parents finding out. Not every student goes home to a loving family who supports them no matter what. By outing them, they could be kicked out of home, physically harmed, or worse. And under this policy, teachers must choose between their job and their students' safety. In World War II, researchers studied the damage sustained by aircrafts returning from combat and recommended armoring the areas that had been damaged most by enemy fire. However, there was one major flaw in this research. They were only paying attention to the aircrafts that made it back, not the ones who didn't. Those were the ones receiving fatal damage. Trans youth are much the same. The people you see in this room are merely the ones who are safe to speak out. The voices who would be most affected by this policy are not in this room tonight. I hope you will keep this in mind. Students, staff, and you will all be miserable if this policy passes. Look what's happened to my district. We're under federal investigation. Please reject his proposal and put your focus back on the education of your students. Please. Thank you.
Timothy Rosas, Olivia Penrod.
I strongly disagree with this proposed policy. This will affect students like me as I'm gender fluid. However, I am lucky enough to have accepting parents who love me regardless of my gender identity. Other kids like me in this district are not as lucky. Having this policy in our district could lead to more trans kids getting abused or even kicked out of their homes because their parents don't accept them for who they are, lead to higher self-harm rates among trans students, even lead to higher suicide rates among trans students, all due to no longer feeling safe or loved at home. School is a safe space for those trans kids that can't come out to their parents or family. Taking that away from them and enacting this policy will harm them in the long run. This is not what I or many of us want for me or my classmates. You're supposed to protect me and individuals like me. Do the right thing, make the right decision.
As a parent, I am raising my kids to be thoughtful, independent, critical thinkers. And if we want the next generation to be competitive on a global level, our public schools should be focused on doing the same. Tell me, how many students were better prepared for real life by limiting what they were allowed to learn in school? None. Texas currently ranks 46th out of 50 states in literacy. And you want to waste precious resources banning books and requiring educators to forcibly out their students to potentially abusive parents or risk losing their jobs? Cruel does not begin to describe this pointless policy. It may come as a shock to some, but there exists a world outside of your home that our children will one day have to make their own way in. If you want to put your kids at a distinct disadvantage in that world, that is your prerogative. But you do not have the right to put everyone else's kids in this district at the same disadvantage. As this policy explicitly states, parents have the ultimate responsibility to protect the health and well-being of their children. I believe that a strong education fostered in an open-minded and loving environment is the bedrock of the health and education of my children. Who are you to say otherwise?
Mandy Giles. Julie Riggs. I'm sorry. Mandy? Yes? Okay, thank you.
My name is Mandy Giles, and I'm the founder of the social impact business Parents of Trans Youth, which serves families in the greater Houston area, including Cy-Fair ISD. At Monday's board meeting, I was surprised that Dr. Blazingame recognized my professional expertise supporting families of transgender kids, especially because she's the one who proposed this policy harming transgender kids. She wanted any support to take place outside of school. Translation: we're gonna kick your trans kids to the ground at school, but we're happy that there's someone else to come pick them back up. My organization wants to see trans youth safe and included everywhere. And we wouldn't have to help your families if their kids felt safe and welcome at school, because that's not happening with this discriminatory policy that would make Cy-Fair ISD a cruel and dangerous place for transgender students. Thank you.
To exclude parents from any process or decision regarding their child represents a nefarious attempt to undermine the family structure and unity. Consequences legally and financially reach beyond the child and are ultimately the parents. These are facts. So to bypass parents and give trusted adults that have no financial responsibility and can walk away at any time without consequence, power to keep things secret and hidden from parents is outrageous. It has been established that 18 years of age is considered an adult. It's not reasonable to expect a child to be mature enough to make decisions with their future in mind. It's unconscionable for a trusted adult to advise or have an undue opinion in life decision with possible devastating consequences without a parent present. A choice made in secret must and can wait until adulthood.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Thank you.
My question
Thank you, Jill. Your time has expired.
Of the board, my name is Natalie Torres, and I am a former educator here at Sci-Fair ISD. In my experience, the situation created significant tension as I was navigating policies and expectations that conflicted with my personal beliefs and professional judgment. The challenges I faced then reflect the broader issues we see in classrooms and society today, where there is increasing pressure to reference individuals by genders other than what God created, male and female. This shift has raised complex questions about identity, respect, and the role of educators. While it is essential to create a supportive environment for all students, it is equally important to have clear, thoughtful policies that address the implications for educators, students, and their families. With that being said, I urge and support the board to consider and to provide clear guidance with respect for all by addressing every person by their biological gender, which God created them. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Kara Char, and I'm both the engagement coordinator at the ACLU of Texas and a deeply disappointed CFISD alumni. I'm here to voice our opposition to FA policy parents' rights. In the limited time I have, I'm asking you to consider a simple question. Who does this policy hurt? Does it hurt the 1,600 trans students in CFISD who are being denied fair access to bathrooms, sports teams, and equal treatment under the law? Does it hurt teachers by creating a hostile learning environment that forces them to potentially disclose in violation of the Texas Administrative Code and require them to demand access to students' private health records? Does it hurt every member of this community's First Amendment rights by denying them right to information and access, which yes, the government is allowed to disagree with or dislike, but is not allowed to outright censor? The short answer is yes. As you will hear from the brave students here tonight, this policy hurts all of us. If you'd like to have more information, more than the minute I provided, as to why it's harmful and why potentially it's illegal, I urge you to look at the letter the ACLU of Texas sent
Thank you.
you
Your time has
earlier
expired.
this morning.
Thank you. Valid opinion? There you are. Thank you.
In this district, I grew up with queer students who couldn't come out to their parents due to threats of emotional and physical harm, rejection, and even homelessness. I know close friends who have become estranged from their families because of coming out as transgender, and others who have effectively had to live double lives in between school and home in order to not be persecuted for their self-expression. This policy will propagate these issues by completely censoring information about trans and non-binary individuals and creating a hostile environment towards queer students. Besides that issue, I feel as though this policy creates an unnecessarily complicated environment for the faculty who are expected to enforce it. My name is Ahanwa Alepinian. While I have never had to go by another name, I know my friends who also have non-English names often use nicknames, and these names don't always correspond to their gender or whatever that means. Ultimately, policies like these not only oppose both scientific and historical information about transgender and non-binary people, but also put queer students who live in unsupportive households, which unfortunately is many, at real risk. Please do not repeat the mistakes of districts like Katy ISD, who choose to put reactionary beliefs about some kind of transgender boogeyman over the safety and personal expression of their students.
Thank you.
Required to narc on any of their students because they confided in them. At the most recent public count, there were 5,000 kids in foster care in the Houston region, some of them within this district. Every child needs an understanding, caring person in their life, and rarely, but sometimes, that's not their parent, it's a teacher. As Miss Rachel says, every child needs just one caring person in their life in order to succeed. Please allow our teachers to fill that role where needed.
Thank you.
Hi, I am a graduate of Cypress Falls High School, graduated in 2011, and I currently have a trans family member who is a student at CFISD. I am here to urge you to please not enact this policy that would forcibly out students to their family. I am happy that my sibling was able to confide in me about their identity, but this is something that not everybody has the ability to do. And I think that to approve this policy would be to deny a safe space for students in the district. So I just came here to say that. Thank you.
Under 7A4, the section titled Biological Sex Specific Spaces is, I believe, meant to protect people. However, there have been no verifiable reports of transgender persons assaulting anybody in public bathrooms. On the opposite end, transgender identity is the 4th highest reason for hate crimes in the United States. The best policy to keep people safe in bathrooms is to allow transgender students to use the facilities they are most comfortable with and punish any student who commits any act of violence. Under this policy, although I am legally male, as a transgender man, I would be required to use the girls' restroom, despite this making many girls uncomfortable. Allowing accommodations to be made for transgender students to be allowed to use gender-neutral or staff bathrooms or changing facilities would help keep transgender students safe, especially after a non-binary student died of their injuries after being severely beaten in a school bathroom after a policy similar to this proposed amendment was implemented. These amendments are not necessary, and if it were to be passed, it would need to be revised before going into effect because it is terribly written.
Concerned about item 7A4 on tonight's agenda. In our role on this commission, we represent a diverse group of communities across the entire county and help to elevate those perspectives. This is a misguided policy and has the potential for serious harm, including emotional and mental distress for those who are not ready to disclose their identity. It also has potential consequences for children who will no longer see their schools and classrooms as safe spaces where they can feel supported in their journeys to becoming who they are. We reject the idea that this policy reinforces parental rights and instead view it as a dangerous overstep. This intrudes on children's ability to self-expression and exploration.
Thank you, your time has expired. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight I will be speaking to the second paragraph under accommodation plans from the teacher's perspective. Besides academics, teachers are also responsible for a few other items, such as looking for signs of abuse and neglect, bullying, mental health issues, human trafficking, and substance abuse. And now you want me to out a student to their parent. I am not qualified to do anything other than to inform. Who is going to go back and support the parent? Who's going to support the child? What if the child, I'm sending information into an unsupportive home and I'm in essence putting a child in harm's way? Teachers are on the front line. We are not qualified to do more than just announce this information. Students should have the freedom and the access to qualified counselors, to qualified personnel in order to share this information and then together with the parents come up with a plan. As a middle school and high school teacher, I've seen students go through many phases trying to find out who they are. They may start the school year as a blonde, then go to black hair, purple hair, and at the end as mouse and brown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have been with the AFT Union, American Federation of Teachers, in some capacity since 2004, over 20 years now, and all of them in Sci-Fair. And in 20 years, not one time has an educator or a parent approached me or contacted our union office